Chapter 738. For a moment, the area around Lu Cheng was as dark as the clouds. The sky was small and the ground was narrow. There was nowhere to hide. Countless lightning bolts were about to erupt and cover the entire area. This was both an illusion and reality. Accompanying all of this was the hands of the warrior sage, Qian Donglu, the hands that reaped victory. Lu Cheng, who had just stopped flying, knew that using the complete 9 words formula could only break through the mental suppression and prevent him from being affected by most of the illusions. However, he would have to defend against the real lightning bolts and attacks with his fists and feet. That would be very dangerous. In a flash, he restrained his instinctive reaction and sought strength from the emotions brewing in his heart. His parents' less haggard faces and Yen Zhika's pure and peaceful expression as she slept appeared in his mind. The throbbing desire to protect and hold on filled his heart. At this moment, he straightened his back like a man. With his parents and wife behind him, how could he retreat? He had to face the difficulties and do what he knew was impossible. Some things were more important than living. Bam! Lu Cheng took half a step forward, his willpower erupting like a volcano and as firm as metal. The darkness around him faded away, and the isolated area returned to nature. As their minds clashed, his subtle premonition grasped the source of the danger. His right arm made a pulling motion. Boom! Bolts of lightning flashed, illuminating the entire arena. The lightning bolts swept across the sky, with the warrior sage's hands hidden as the strongest point. Bam! In the instant before the lightning bolts erupted, Lu Cheng punched out his right fist. The faint purple light in front of him expanded rapidly, forming a thick layer of ice on the surface of his body. In the past year, his attainments in the cosmic universe sect had deepened. He could now do things that he couldn't before. For example, with one punch, he could separate ice and fire, combining attack and defense into one. Combined with the willpower, feelings, and emotions that had run through his entire martial arts career, it was a killer move that he had created himself. Cosmic Universe style. Guardian. Boom. Amidst the earthquake-like shaking and crackling sounds, Lu Cheng's body was covered in silver snakes, shattering the layer of ice. In front of his fist, flames turned into clouds and expanded, blocking Qian Donglu's purple thunderseal. Thump, thump, thump. Having lost the upper hand, Lu Cheng, whose body was somewhat numb, was bounced back. His footsteps were slightly messy. In that instant, he recalled the time when he had used tilting northwest, sinking southeast, to cause Lu Yongyuan to react in a similar manner. Then, he had used a series of terrifying attacks to take away his opponent. He had a deep understanding of his current situation. However, just as he was about to detonate the fire force in his body and move to the side in a strange manner, a figure appeared in front of him in a flash and crashed into him at a speed faster than the speed of sound. The warrior sage's lightning strikes before the ears bang. Lu Cheng crossed his arms in front of his body to block the attack. He was pushed backwards by the overwhelming force. Crack! Several bones in his chest were broken, so he quickly gave up on stabilizing his body and flew backwards. Otherwise, both of his arms would have been fractured. Then there was no way to fight. Rumble! The cloud of the sonic boom expanded, and the violent wind made Qian Donglu's white robe dance in the wind. He looked inexplicably lofty. Relying on his strength, his figure fluttered as he chased after Lu Cheng. He took a step forward and clapped his palms together. Rumble! A thunderclap pierced through the remnants of the explosion, causing Lu Cheng's mind to buzz for a moment. His ice heart shattered once again. The second and third section changes he had prepared deflated naturally, as if a car tire had been ruthlessly pierced by a steel nail. Thump! He landed on the ground and hurriedly leaned back. A thin purple thunder saber slashed between his chest and abdomen, almost extending to his throat and head. With a sizzling sound, a deep wound appeared in front of Lu Cheng. Crimson blood didn't flow out, only signs of charred flesh. His whole body went numb, and only after a moment of rest did he have the strength to concentrate his abdomen. At this time, Qian Donglu had already caught up. His left leg tightened, surrounded by silvery light, and he lashed out with a series of attacks. Bam, 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 bam. In such a precarious situation, Lu Cheng felt as though he had returned to the semi-finals of the Supreme Class battle. At that time, he had encountered a warrior sage who was in a much better physical condition than today. At first, he could still attack and defend, but very soon, he fell into a similar situation. Under wave after wave of combos, he could not hold on for long and was defeated miserably. Was he going to repeat the same story today? The thought flashed through his mind. Lu Cheng gritted his teeth and blocked with a heart that was a mixture of survival and protection. He didn't panic. Bam, 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 crackle. Lu Cheng's ice heart was activated again. His god shone, and his sharp senses detected this. Now is the time. He stopped using ice spirit and allowed the Emperor Yen force in his body to surge out of his fists. Chen Donglu's expression didn't change. Holding the initiative, he dodged to the side and struck with his palms again. Lu Cheng's body shook. Before he could swing his fist, the purple flame had already dissipated. It was like a dud that could only burn the air and the ground. Bam! Lu Cheng had already dodged the cloudless thunderblade in advance, but Chen Donglu launched another attack. 9 Heavens Ensemble. Lightning Tribulation. Bam! 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 Because of this, Lu Cheng, who had lost his accurate judgment of time, could hold on bitterly under round after round of crazy attacks. Although he was in a sorry state, he didn't show any signs of defeat. However, Chen Donglu's attack seemed endless. Lu Cheng's numbness accumulated and his injuries worsened. Bam! Finally, after 2 punches, Lu Cheng's muscles and tendons trembled violently. He couldn't help but stagger back. His mind went blank, and he temporarily lost the ability to retaliate. He knew that if the warrior sage took this opportunity to attack, he could only resign himself to his fate and accept his defeat. However, the expected attack didn't appear. Lu Cheng recovered and saw the white-robed Chen Donglu doing force concentration. Had his combo finally come to an end? Had he finally exceeded the limit of the freezing? Had the hidden injuries from the previous few intense battles finally shown? Here's my chance. Without hesitation, Lu Cheng followed up with force concentration. He withdrew his qi, blood, force, numbness, trembling, and other sensations into his dantian. Moving his stars, he outlined 9 ancient words. Confrontation. Army. Fighting. Swordsman. Wholeness. Formation. Deference. Forwarding. Attainment. Bam. He pushed out both palms towards Chen Donglu, who had already launched an electric punch. His mental strength surged and his willpower penetrated. Suddenly, Chen Donglu felt a little dizzy. He felt as if darkness had descended around him, so deep that it seemed to have no end. The bone-chilling sensation was both cold and lonely. This was Lu Cheng's concept of the universe. Loneliness, frustration, coldness, and pain flooded Chen Donglu's mind. Even though he was the warrior sage, he had tasted similar emotions before. He couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. His punches slowed down. Lu Cheng took advantage of this short delay and arched his back. He dodged the attack and prepared himself. In the dark and boundless universe, stars rose one after another, each emitting a pure white light. They rushed towards Chen Donglu from all directions. The illusory coldness materialized, sealing the warrior sage's body in ice. This was his self-created killer move, Universe Phantom, which was infused with mental strength. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. One by one, the eternal stars charged towards the warrior sage, with tails of flames behind them. Chen Donglu narrowed his eyes. Silver white, pure green, and bright purple lightning leaped from his body. They shattered the ice and struck the fireball. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions rang out, shaking the earth and mountains. Chen Donglu forcibly blocked the killer move. However, his face was pale and his qi and blood were waning. At this moment, Lu Cheng straightened his back and took half a step forward. He raised his arm and clenched his fist, forming a dazzling darkness. Tilting northwest, sinking southeast. Bam! He flipped and fell, calming the remaining lightning, flames, and wind. It was as if they were suppressed or destroyed. Chen Donglu took a deep breath. His body suddenly expanded, transforming into a thunder giant. Under the ancient and abstruse thunder seal patterns, he threw a punch forward. Boom! Amidst the explosion, he swung his arm back and retreated. Every step he took left deep footprints, as though he was trying to dissipate the force that was difficult to resolve. Lu Cheng gathered his Dan force and drew the fighting formula. He strode forward and punched down. Bam, bam, bam. He used the Dan force explosion and the complete fighting formula 3 times consecutively. The violent and terrifying force left Qian Donglu wobbling, bleeding from his mouth and nose. However, the other party still managed to hold on, relying on all kinds of exquisite and extraordinary methods to hold on. Lu Cheng's momentum slowed. He had no choice but to stop his killer moves and switch to normal punches and kicks. He launched a barrage of attacks to suppress the warrior sage and prevent him from pulling away. In this kind of attack, he punched with ice spirit and slowly condensed white, faint purple, and other fireballs around him. He was accumulating the 9 rotations of 5 flames, just like the fire sect physical invulnerability experts except for Dragon King. Qian Donglu tried his best to break free. Lightning danced wildly and spread across the ground, but to no avail. When the 5 flames were formed, Lu Cheng leaped forward, and the fireballs around him quickly converged into one. At this moment, lightning flashed across Qian Donglu's body, forming a stark contrast with the lightning snakes slithering on the ground. He floated up half an inch as though he was repelled by the ground. Then, he slid back with almost no friction, narrowly avoiding Lu Cheng's punch. Even in a passive situation, the warrior sage still had the foresight to make such a move. Shocked, Lu Cheng hurriedly stabilized the 5 flames to prevent them from converging. He didn't want to waste his ultimate move. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. He saw Qian Donglu's abdomen squirming as he retreated. He opened his throat and let out a thunderous roar that shook the 3 realms. He didn't have the energy to use thunder from a clear sky. Cloudless thunder blade while floating backward, but he could use other methods to disrupt his opponent. Boom! Lu Cheng's mind shook. His ice heart cracked and the 5 flames around him were about to go out of control. At the critical moment, he stabilized his ice heart and regained the balance of the 5 flames with his absolute control. This wasn't the Tao of ice and fire, but a technique from the 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the sun itself. In that instant, Lu Cheng recalled the Dragon King's advice. When he was proud of his cosmic universe style and could easily use the 9 rotations of 5 flames, the Dragon King had specifically said, use this time to practice the 9 rotations of 5 flames again. You're relying on cultivation techniques to omit the complicated control techniques in the 9 rotations of 5 flames. These things won't help you use the 9 rotations of 5 flames better, but they can improve your control of the various flames. These are the basics. Some shortcuts can be taken, but some things can't be saved. The scene flashed. Lu Cheng secretly circulated his qi and blood to stimulate his body. He used the simplified attainment formula and pounced. Leaving behind afterimages, he caught up to the exhausted warrior sage, Qian Donglu. Bam! He clenched his right fist and punched. Golden, faint purple, and light blue fireballs converged into one. Qian Donglu's expression changed slightly. His body contorted as he threw a punch out of thin air. Rumble! A blinding white light, like the arrival of the great sun, shone on the sunglasses. The arena shook violently, and a mushroom cloud rose. As the flames and shockwaves swept across, Lu Cheng, who had retreated a few steps, straightened his back, formed a layer of ice, and dashed towards Qian Donglu. Bam bam bam. Enduring the damage, he approached. He saw the warrior sage, who was in a weakened state for a brief moment. If he waited for the power of descent of the great sun to pass before launching his attack, the warrior sage would most likely be able to recover and hold on for a while longer. At that time, it would be hard to tell who would emerge victorious. Lu Cheng clenched his teeth and reached out with his left hand to grab Qian Donglu's arm. However, the moment he made contact, he realized that Qian Donglu was like a nimble snake. However, this was Lu Cheng's attempt at controlling the warrior sage's remaining strength. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he paused his left hand and stomped on the ground. His entire body turned sideways and rammed forward like a cannonball. Bam! With Qian Donglu wide open, Lu Cheng pressed his shoulder against Qian Donglu's chest. With a snap of his right elbow, Lu Cheng swung his arm downwards, stopping right in front of Qian Donglu's vitals. Silence fell and the waves began to subside. Through his sunglasses, the referee saw the frozen scene from afar. He quickly raised his right hand and shouted, "Lu Cheng wins!" P.S. 4,000 words chapter. Chapter 739. Lu Cheng wins. As the wind blew and the clouds drifted, the frozen scene finally changed. Lu Cheng stood up straight, raised his arms, and saluted. Thank you for the match. It was just a simple gesture, but it caused pain in his chest. His senses returned, and he heaved a sigh of relief. Gradually, he felt overjoyed. Other than the tag team battles and the professional matches, this was the first time he had defeated the warrior sage in a one-on-one battle, even if it was a 70% warrior sage. Compared to the situation during the Battle of Supreme Grades a year ago, although the other party's physical condition was worse, he could clearly feel his own improvement. That was what made him the happiest. Qian Donglu took a deep breath, and his expression softened. He shook his tattered white robe, took a deep look at Lu Cheng, shook his head and sighed. You looked like Chen Qitao when you charged through the explosion just now. After that, he turned around and walked slowly to the corresponding exit. Lu Cheng was stunned. He couldn't help but criticize in his mind. Usually, people compare you to me. What do you mean when you say I look like the Dragon King? Who do I look more like? Why does it feel like I'm a product of the different characteristics of the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage? That's a weird sentence. The joy of defeating the #1 physical invulnerability expert in the world made Lu Cheng relax. All kinds of strange thoughts popped up one after another. At this moment, the live audience finally reacted. They cheered in amazement. Lu Cheng! Retracting his thoughts, Lu Cheng endured the pain and waved. In his fan forum, Nye Chi said with a shocked expression. This doesn't make sense. How did he win? Unparalleled Dragon King replied with a funny expression. Why can't he win? Lu Cheng is at least a superclass, and the gap between him and the Warrior Sage isn't that big. The Warrior Sage has been fighting hard all this while, and he even got hit by Lu Yongyuan. It's good enough that he's at 70% of his peak condition. As for Lu Cheng, he only encountered 2 strong opponents. The battle with Living Buddha was a mental injury. Based on the data, he should have recovered from this long ago. Therefore, the battle with the long dike that protects the sea drained him a little, but his injuries weren't that serious. Today, he's about 80 to 90% of himself. Given this, it's not impossible for him to win against the Warrior Sage, even though it's difficult. I mean, how did Lu Cheng become a superclass? That's too fast. I feel like I'm in a dream. Peng Leyun and Ran Li are only at the first pin level. Nye Chi expressed her astonishment incoherently. A plumber eating mushrooms said, Didn't the interviews and reports mention that Lu Cheng is a future grandmaster? He blended other sects and created the cosmic universe style. Just the uncertainty of the challenge tournament itself makes it hard to say whether he can win a title in the following year. Think about it. Unless you have unrivaled strength like the Warrior Sage or the Dragon King, the title battle still depends on luck. Especially for superclass fighters like Lu Cheng. If you really want to win the final battle, you can't do without the right time, place, and people. Look, even the unrivaled Warrior Sage couldn't resist Black Hand this time. Facing strong opponents and tough battles all the way, he was finally stopped by Lu Cheng. Of course, relatively speaking, as long as his luck isn't that bad, the right to challenge will still be in his bag. Xiaofan rubbed his bald chin and said, That's right. That's why I don't think Lu Cheng will win the right to challenge and win a title this time. He still lacks the right time, place and people, and his luck is still lacking. Unless he draws Ran Li today. It's a pity that time can't be turned back. Yeah, Lu Cheng was pretty badly injured in the previous battle. Kiran, Dong Baxian, shouldn't have any problems fighting Ran Li. When it comes to the finals, the difference will be very obvious. I feel like you've poisoned Dong Baxian. The host gasped. My confidence is shaken. I'm just saying it out of habit. Xiaofan laughed dryly and changed the topic. I just looked through the information. Lu Cheng is the youngest physical invulnerability expert to defeat the Warrior Sage in a one-on-one battle. I have a feeling that the era of the Scepter legacy is changing. The legendary twins are about to come to an end. In the next 10 or 15 years, will it be a scene of heroes vying for supremacy and gods rising together? Or will it be a scene of someone dominating a generation and dominating the world? But no matter what, Lu Cheng's name is destined to shine. Perhaps in the future, He will really get a nickname he likes and become the king of the age of Pantheon. Xiaowei, your eloquence is getting better and better. You're making my blood boil, said the host, half smiling and half indignant. In a well-known commentary room, the bullet screen was flooding in. Why aren't you saying anything? Why are you suddenly silent? Come out and continue praising. We're all waiting for you to praise him. Tell us, are you secretly wiping your tears? Are you still a man? Weren't you talkative before? Every time Lu Cheng won, you would shower him with compliments. Why are you mute today? Lu Cheng defeated the warrior sage. He defeated the warrior sage. Aren't you going to say something? Damn it, my mood is ruined by you guys. Kai Zhongming said in a low voice, annoyed and amused. Don't you guys know? This is called saying, silence is better than words. This is the highest award. Commentator, you really don't lose with words. Talker lives up to his nickname. When you and Lu Cheng combine, you can dominate every second of the challenge tournament. I remember the Dragon Ball combination technique. Oh no, I've exposed my age. Lu Cheng wins. In a VIP room. Geezer Shi raised his eyebrows and laughed. He extended his hand to the side and said, Wu Guang, my disciple isn't bad, right? His hand missed. He turned his head and saw that the seat beside him was empty. Taoist Wu Guang had left at some point. Where is he? Asked Shi Jiangwo. Queen of Thought, Fei Dan and the others looked at each other blankly. Lu Cheng enjoyed the joy of victory as he walked back to his exclusive lounge and took his phone from Amen. Yen Zhaka had already sent him several emojis. Some were sitting in a daze, some were pale with fright, some were waving tail, some were setting off firecrackers to celebrate, and some were offering kisses. After sending these emojis, she was more concerned about another question. How are your injuries? A few broken ribs and countless wounds on my body. Lu Cheng grinned. I'll be lucky if I can recover 50 to 60% by the time the finals begin. Bone fractures were different from bone fractures. They couldn't be healed in 2 or 3 days. By the time the finals began, he would barely be able to hold on. Facing Dong Baxian, one of the top 3 players in the world, in such a state, the result was obvious. You're fine. How can Warrior Sage not pay the price? Yen Zhaka tried her best to comfort him. Maybe Ran Li can create some trouble for Dong Baxian and leave him with a hidden danger? That's true. Lu Cheng smiled and asked, Cuckoo, shouldn't you be busy with your studies today? Why do I feel like I've watched the entire competition? She replied with an angry eyes. I don't care if it dies. Chapter 740. After treating his injuries, Lu Cheng was in no hurry to leave and return to the hotel. Instead, he stayed in the exclusive lounge to watch the second semi-final match. Although everyone believed that Kiran Dong Baxian would win, actual combat was always full of surprises. Lu Cheng couldn't guarantee that Ran Li would definitely lose. In the arena, absolute strength didn't mean absolute victory. There were many factors that could affect the outcome, such as mentality, courage, perseverance, character and importance, physical condition, mental state, and the ability to counter each other. Under the circumstances where there wasn't a huge gap between realms, it wasn't impossible for a third-pin physical invulnerability expert to win against the warrior sage. However, the probability was very low. Back when Qian Donglu was beaten to the brink of collapse by the Dragon King, he was always doubting and denying himself. As a result, he was indecisive and lost to second-pin and third-pin opponents consecutively. It took him a while to get rid of the shadow and walk out of it. Therefore, Ran Li, who was at the level of a quasi-first pin, was only slightly weaker than Dong Baxian. If she really had some sort of trump card that no one knew about, and used it at the right time, in addition to the other party's pride and contempt, the result might have been reversed. For most superclass fighters, they might win 7 or 8 out of 10 matches against ordinary first-pin fighters. However, when it came to a single match, it was hard to say for sure. If that wasn't the case, upsets wouldn't exist. Title matches wouldn't exist either. That would be like going back to ancient times, when the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage would have a match every year. Lu Cheng sipped on his hot drink and watched the big screen leisurely. Since the start of the match, the development was exactly what everyone expected. Ranli relied on her wind sect movements to tangle with Dong Baxian's aggressive attacks. She patiently wore him down and occasionally counterattacked. After 3 or 4 minutes, Ranli gradually fell into a passive position and could only hold on bitterly. After a while, she was surrounded by dangers from time to time. It seemed that failure was only a matter of time. During this process, Dong Baxian saw that she used a lot of new things that originated from the Wind Sect and the Plague Sect but were branded with her own characteristics. However, they were all countered by Dong Baxian. It's almost over. Lu Cheng sighed as he controlled his body and started to repair the minute details. At that moment, when Renly couldn't dodge and seemed to have lost her ability to defend herself, a pure sword light flashed and went straight for Dong Baxian. Bang! Renly was struck by the palm and was sent flying. Blood gushed out from her mouth while Dong Baxian stood in place with a strange expression on his face. The long sword had pierced through his body, creating a hideous wound. Thump! Renly fell outside the arena. She struggled a few times but failed to stand up. The referee announced Dong Baxian's victory and signaled for the medical staff to come over as soon as possible. Seeing this change, Lu Qing frowned. With Dong Baxian's level and strength, he shouldn't have been unable to block Renli's last desperate attack. Why was he half a beat slower? Why was he injured in exchange for victory? And why was his injury so serious? Soon, he thought of the hidden scent that Renly had used when she was in the dance stage. He replayed the previous 3 minutes in his mind and realized that Dong Baxian's sluggishness wasn't sudden. It had been there for a long time, but it wasn't so obvious. As a bystander, he couldn't see it. Is this the secret art of physical invulnerability corresponding to hidden fragrance? The Kong Tong school uses the Wind Sect as the core and blends the incomplete chapters of the Plague Sect? A terrifying biological weapon? Wouldn't it be too scary when combined with the Wind Sect's movement technique? Fortunately, Heaven's equal sword Fengji had never been involved in this field. Lu Cheng retracted his gaze and came to a conclusion. Dong Baxian's injury was probably more serious than it looked. Kuka's words had come true, hadn't they? Lu Cheng shared this with the busy Yen Zheka. Then he got up slowly, met up with Amen, and returned to the hotel. Just as he entered the suite, he received a call from Empress Luo, Ning Zitong. Have you been blessed by divine monk Fayuan recently? This kind of luck is simply enviable. She tried her best to learn the internet slang of children to keep her spirit young. However, she didn't realize that this was a trend from a few years ago. What's wrong, Sister Ning? Lu Cheng roughly guessed that it was about Dong Baxian. However, he was puzzled that Empress Luo would call him personally. Ning Zitong chuckled. I received news from the organizing committee that Dong Baxian is most likely going to withdraw from the competition due to his injury. That girl from Kong Tong School sure is ruthless. Of course, Chihuahuas are much more ruthless than big dogs like Huskies and Alaskan Malamutes. Lu Cheng thought to himself. Then he froze. Wait a minute. Dong Baxian is going to withdraw from the competition due to his injury? Doesn't that mean I'm guaranteed a spot in the final challenge? This luck. I don't even dare to think about it. Lu Cheng gave a perfunctory reply. When Empress Luo hung up the phone, he still couldn't believe what had happened. He opened Weibo and saw that He Xiaowei had posted a new post. According to insider information, Dong Baxian may be withdrawing from the competition due to his injury. In an instant, he received hundreds of replies. What the F***CK? Withdrawing from the competition. Another victim of the poison milk, and the effects are extremely devastating. I'm kneeling. Salute to the poison milk hierarch. You just healed him once and he can't take it anymore. This skill is comparable to FGW's causal weapon. He's invincible. Maybe it's because of Ranli's luck. But Lu Cheng is the one benefiting. He must have done something. Sigh, if Dong Baxian had gotten the right to challenge, he might have had a chance of winning against the Dragon King. However, Lu Cheng is still far from it. The Battle of Warrior Sage in July is a foregone conclusion. Yeah, it's boring. The Dragon King will win anyway. The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He felt that this matter was too surreal. Suddenly, he received a message from talker Kai Xiaoming. Cheng, have you been stepping on dog shit lately? Lu Cheng replied, amused and annoyed at the same time. You pooped? While many of his friends were looking for him, Yan Zhaka took the opportunity to say, "Scared? Am I a jinx? No way. This is called prophecy coming true. You have a golden mouth and jade teeth, and your words are law. Your character is shining brilliantly." Lu Cheng praised with a smile. While they were chatting, his phone rang again. It was Empress Luo. "Sister Ning, has Dong Baxian confirmed his withdrawal from the competition?" asked Lu Cheng when the call went through. Ning Zitong chuckled. "No, I'm telling you. His injuries are serious, but he has decided to continue the competition. After all, there's only one match left. Given Dong Baxian's pride and arrogance, he must think that he can beat you in his half-crippled state. And he has a high chance of winning." Lu Cheng chuckled upon hearing that. He could feel his fighting spirit surging and burning. "Then I'll wait and see." Chapter 741. May 21st, 8 p.m. Zhouwen Stadium. The spectator stands were packed with people, their shouts deafening. Lu Cheng stood in the middle, recalling the scene of the University Martial Arts Tournament finals. It felt like a lifetime ago. In front of him, Dong Baxian left the exit and walked over step by step. He was wearing a light white martial arts suit with crimson markings. He was tall, about 1.9 meters tall, but he didn't look clumsy. Instead, he gave off a slender vibe. Dong Baxian's hair was combed up and tied into a simple bun. His facial features weren't outstanding, but they were well defined. He looked masculine and powerful, as if he was looking down on the world. He didn't look too good, and one could see the discomfort in his gait. As a result, he didn't reveal his aura and engage in a mental battle. When he stopped at the predetermined spot, the referee glanced at the electronic watch on his wrist, pushed his sunglasses up, and raised his right hand. "Conversation time starts now." Dong Baxian looked at Lu Cheng, his eyes filled with an unruliness that didn't belong to someone his age. His lips curled slightly as he spoke calmly. "I know my injuries are much more serious than yours. My chances of winning today aren't high." He's not as arrogant and conceited as I thought. Lu Cheng was slightly taken aback, so he reined in his thoughts and waited for him to continue. Dong Baxian tilted his head, shifted his gaze up, and stared at the lights in the dome. "Compared to the title of Kirin, I miss my title of King more. I can be defeated, but I will never admit defeat, even if it's just an injury. Unless I can no longer move." This was the philosophy and will of the warrior king. At this point, he smiled faintly. "Besides, it's not like I'm bound to lose. There's still hope if I give it a try, but there's no chance at all if I withdraw directly. Even if the chances aren't high, I'll do my best to pursue it." Dong Baxian's aura suddenly erupted. The light from the dome seemed to be attracted by an invisible object and firmly attached to his body, covering him with a pure and brilliant armor. That kind of upright, proud, tyrannical, and disdainful feeling shot straight to the clouds. Influenced by his words, Lu Cheng's fighting spirit also surged. He lowered his waist and replied with a smile, "I'll also do my best to pursue victory." The two of them stopped talking. Their auras affected the heavens and the earth, changing the atmosphere in the stadium. There was a flash of light that tried to illuminate everything, and there was also a snowstorm that tried to bury everything. The referee retreated step by step to the edge. After waiting for a moment, he raised his right arm and swung it down. "Begin." Thump. Dong Baxian, draped in a cloak of light, took a step forward in a standard offensive posture. Lu Cheng reacted immediately. With a twist of his waist and back, he turned around and attacked his opponent from the side with the momentum of the blizzard. At this moment, under Dong Baxian's martial arts suit, his veins bulged like dragons. His body suddenly disappeared and reappeared in front of Lu Cheng at supersonic speed. Without any fancy moves, he charged straight at Lu Cheng. Golden scripture of Dong Huang, Xuanpa. The battle was intense from the very beginning. A few minutes later, the Zhouwen Stadium was filled with craters. There were flying rocks everywhere, glass-like objects that had melted and reformed, as well as charred and frozen traces. In the largest shallow pit, Lu Cheng and Dong Baxian were only 2 to 3 meters apart from each other. Both of them looked extremely pathetic. After blacking out for a while, Lu Cheng regained consciousness. He felt his spirit was almost drained, and his head was throbbing with a piercing pain. He struggled to stand up, only to realize that he had fractured a few parts of his body, including his left arm. The biggest wound was so deep that his internal organs could be seen. Bam! Lu Cheng finally got up. He swayed a little and almost lost his footing. He looked up and saw Dong Baxian trying to stand up but failing repeatedly. He was in a worse state than him. What a tragic battle. If I had underestimated him, I might have fallen into Dong Baxian's trap and been successfully defeated by him as the weak. His words at the start were to express his determination and willpower, but at the same time, it was also a show of weakness to numb me. Who would have thought that once we started fighting, he would go all out without a care in the world? Luckily, I wasn't blindly optimistic and still took this combat king seriously. In the end, we were just rookies. As his thoughts raced, Lu Cheng took a deep breath and resisted the urge to visualize. He used a simplified version of the confrontation formula on Dong Baxian. Instantly, Dong Baxian's exhaustion overwhelmed him, and he stopped struggling. He was already at his limit, so all he wanted was to lie down and rest. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, felt his body and mind clear. His wounds wriggled faster and healed slightly. Gently biting the tip of his tongue, Lu Cheng resisted the urge to sleep. He moved his feet and came beside the defenseless Dong Baxian. Seeing that the tip of his foot was pressed against his opponent's temple, the referee heaved a sigh of relief. He raised his right hand and announced loudly, "Lu Cheng." He took a deep breath and raised his voice by a few notches. "Victory!" Phew! Lu Cheng exhaled a turbid breath. His vision darkened again as golden spots of light danced around, making him break out in cold sweat. Finally, I've won the right to challenge. The Warrior Sage Challenge was in mid-July. He had plenty of time to recover to his peak condition. Of course, his opponent then would be the Dragon King in full strength. Upon hearing the referee's announcement, the relevant sections of the internet went into an uproar. Headlines popped up like mushrooms after a rain. Lu Cheng lives up to expectations. Victory! Champion of the Heavenly Sons of Heaven, won the right to challenge for a title half a year earlier than Wisdom King. Consecutively defeating Warrior Sage and Kirin, Lu Cheng's first place in the elimination round is well-deserved. Is he expected to win his first title in July? Dragon Tiger Battle in July. Apart from these praises, there were also many people expressing their disappointment. I can foresee that the Warrior Sage battle in July will be very boring. I'm not belittling Lu Cheng. He will definitely have many titles in the future. However, he's still too inexperienced. Winning the right to challenge this time was more of a fluke factor. In this state, he has almost no chance of winning against the unruffled Dragon King. Comparatively speaking, if Dong Ba were to challenge him first, he would at least have a 30% chance of winning. Alright, let's look at this match without any suspense with blessings. Lu Cheng didn't pay attention to the comments online as he was treating his injuries. When his right hand was free, he quickly replied to Yan Zhaka. Proud smile emoji. The first match you'll watch when you return to China will be the Warrior Sage battle between me and Dragon King. Yan Zhaka sent an emoji of pushing up her sunglasses. She replied, "Are you inviting me?" "Of course." Lu Cheng replied with a smile. After chatting for a while, Yan Zhaka put down her phone and looked at the information on the computer screen. She thought for a while and flipped to July on the decorative calendar at the side. She found 12th and picked up a fountain pen to mark it. Before that, it was 5th of July when she returned to China. Yan Zhaka took a deep look at the calendar and took a deep breath. She shook her fist lightly to encourage herself and then immersed herself in learning. After lying in the hospital for a few days, Lu Cheng, who had recovered slightly, returned to the Longhu Club. He felt a little uneasy. According to the rumors about Dragon King's character and his observations over time, this top-notch physical invulnerability expert was indeed narrow-minded and indifferent to his challengers. He wouldn't even show them the slightest bit of respect, let alone training them. In the past, he didn't have the qualifications to enjoy such treatment. However, now that he had obtained the right to challenge the Warrior Sage, Dragon King's attitude might change. After changing his clothes, Lu Cheng stepped into the physical invulnerability training ground. Just as he was about to enter his own section, he saw Dragon King, Chen Qitao, standing in front of him in a navy blue suit. He was expressionless and majestic. "How's your injury?" Chen Qitao asked in a low voice. It's almost done. I can start training now, Lu Cheng replied after some consideration. Chen Qitao nodded indiscernibly and pointed to the lakeside. Since you've recovered, let's start sparring. Oh, okay. Lu Cheng was delighted at first but was soon filled with doubts. Dragon King's attitude is different from what I expected. Did he have a change of heart? But as the saying goes, a leopard can't change its spots. Could it be that he still thinks that I'm not qualified and can easily beat me? Thinking about it, I'm a little disappointed. At this moment, Chen Qitao had already turned around and walked out with his hands behind his back. Lu Cheng quickly gathered his thoughts and followed him. He subconsciously touched the corner of his mouth and felt an inexplicable pain. Chapter 742. She counted down the days as she busied herself. May was finally over, and June was coming to an end. Yen Zheka changed her clothes, grabbed her backpack, and walked towards the bedroom door. Before she left, she subconsciously looked back at the marked calendar. It's almost time. The busiest thing is done. All that's left is the paperwork. She looked away and walked down the stairs briskly. She got into Du Yan's car and arrived at the Connecticut campus. The greenery here was excellent. Trees were everywhere, and many of the roads were quite interesting. Walking among them and seeing all this, Yen Zheka suddenly realized that she had not paid attention to the scenery around her for a long time. She was so busy that she could not bear to waste a minute and a second on unimportant things. But now, it's all over. She could relax again. She pursed her lips into a sweet smile. Her right foot stepped lightly in front of her left foot, and then her left foot did the same. She walked slowly in a straight line. Her body swayed slightly from time to time, as if she was simulating an invisible balance beam. She entered a quiet building at the end of the road and knocked on the door of her tutor's office. Good morning, Mr. Furman. Are you looking for me? Her tutor, Furman, was almost 80 years old. His face was full of wrinkles and age spots, but he was still hale and hearty. He did not have the cloudy eyes of his peers. He turned his chair and looked at Yen Zheka. He crossed his hands in front of his chest and smiled. Sophia, are you really not going to consider continuing? Over the past 2 years, you have displayed outstanding talent and proven your ability. Your rigorous thinking, keen observation, and unique insights have left a deep impression on me. Why don't you continue? Yes, a degree is just a performance. It is not necessarily important, but you have just opened the door to this field. There are so many treasures waiting for you to explore and obtain. If you stay here, you will have a deeper understanding of this field. You will also have opportunities to get in touch with frontier affairs. I believe that there is no other place in the world that suits you better than here. A world-class master, a master who had brought out so many economic award winners, had given her such high recognition. Yen Zheka felt satisfied and happy as if she had gained something. She bit her lower lip and looked up. After a moment of silence she said, Mr. Furman, thank you very much for your recognition. I am very excited. Becoming the best in this field has always been my dream, and it hasn't changed even now. However, it has nothing to do with external factors. It's just a personal hobby of mine. I will continue, but not here, and not necessarily in the next few years. Since I have opened the door, I want to spend my life exploring, researching, and enjoying it slowly. It's like tasting a delicacy. Maybe I will come back for a short visit, but not now. I hope you don't mind that I often send you emails to ask you questions or discuss. Earth is just a village. It doesn't matter where it is. Furman nodded slowly. All right. He waited for a few seconds before asking again, Can you tell me why? Yen Zheka's dimples could be seen. Because I have more important things to do. Furman didn't mention this matter again and signaled for the girl to leave. Yen Zheka turned around and slowly left the small building. The sun was just right outside. It was warm but not hot. The ground was shining with golden light. Her mood was calm and peaceful, but there were bubbles bubbling inside her. Suddenly, she thought of a song and couldn't help but hum its melody silently. I'm going to marry you tomorrow. On a sunny morning, Lu Cheng put on his disguise and arrived at the international arrival hall of Huaqing Heishui Airport. Today is the day little fairy returns. The torturous long-distance relationship is coming to an end. Lu Cheng couldn't hold back his excitement. If it weren't for the Warrior Sage battle finals in a few days, he would have used the opportunity in the second half of the year to fly over to pick her up. Songqing University and Kongshan University's joint training program was equivalent to a master's degree. Students could obtain degrees from both universities. Previously, Cuckoo had wanted to shorten the training period to 3 years, but she had failed to do so because the curriculum was already very tight. Hence, it was still the normal 4 years. 4 years was a long time for a young man in his 20s. And it is finally coming to an end. Lu Cheng couldn't calm down. He looked down at the time, the flight schedule, and the bouquet of flowers in his arms. My brain must have gone haywire. Why did I think of buying a bouquet of flowers? It feels so silly to wait like this. Lu Cheng couldn't help but criticize himself. But in the blink of an eye, he was drowned by his memories. The farewell was still vivid in his mind. Little Fairy's confession, no longer holding back her tears, was as clear as yesterday. Above the clouds the plane flew at high speed. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled below. On such a journey, bumps were inevitable. Yen Zheka was wearing an eye mask. She tossed and turned, but couldn't fall asleep. Suddenly, there was a violent jolt. The plane seemed to have been forcefully pushed to the side. Many people screamed. Unpacked coffee, food, and other things flew everywhere. Yen Zheka took off the blindfold abruptly and grabbed the armrest with both hands. She was obviously nervous. To her, this wasn't a normal reaction. She had always boasted that she wasn't afraid of death. Born with a congenital defect, she was weak and sickly since young. Before the age of 10, she was admitted to the hospital every few days. Death was so close at hand. Such an experience made Yen Zheka feel that she didn't care about life and death. She felt that it was just a natural outcome and that there was nothing to be afraid of. That was why she wasn't afraid of heights, extreme sports like bungee jumping, or the unexpected changes in the plane. But now, she couldn't control her anxiety and fear. And these emotions got worse as the bumpy ride continued. Because she had finally finished her education. Because her long-distance relationship was about to come to fruition. Because a new phase of her life was about to begin. Because there was a silly guy waiting for her at the airport. She wasn't afraid of death, but she was afraid of regret. Her hands clenched tighter and tighter, her veins popping. Yen Zheka could barely hear the consolation from the radio. Half of her mind was filled with worry and fear, and the other half was rational but panicked thinking. If the plane crashes into the sea, with my strength and supernatural ability, I should have a good chance of surviving. If that happens, Cheng will definitely search for me at all costs. Then he will miss the Battle of Warrior Sage. Why am I thinking about this mess at this time? If something really happens, how am I going to save myself? As her thoughts flashed, the plane finally stabilized. The cabin was a mess. Phew. Yen Zheka exhaled. Her tense muscles and tendons relaxed, and she felt exhausted. She leaned back and thought, if Cheng knows that I'm scared because of this, humph, he'll definitely laugh at me. After some time, the plane finally arrived and landed. Yen Zheka, who was exhausted, found her luggage and went to the hall with the remaining tension. Before she could move her eyes, she saw the familiar guy holding a bouquet of flowers. He pretended to be gentle and natural and smiled. Let's go home. The remaining tension disappeared. Yen Zheka's vision blurred. She reached out and grabbed the bouquet of flowers. She raised her chin slightly and said with a hint of sobbing, "Humph, it's me who's taking you home. It's good to be home. P.S. The Qidian app has been updated recently. Once you fix the wrong words in the article, all the chapters before this node will disappear. Previously, the section about Coach Shi and Wu Guang was swallowed up by almost 200 articles. Therefore, I haven't been updating and updating recently. Instead, I'm updating and updating again. However, if there are any omissions, I won't update them, in case the chapter disappears." Chapter 743. July 12, 6 in the evening, Silk Road Hotel, Hushi City. Lu Cheng stood in front of the mirror, smiling as he watched Yen Zheka tidy his collar and smooth out his wrinkles. "Done. So handsome." She looked him up and down, clapped her hands, and nodded in satisfaction. Lu Cheng looked at himself in the mirror. His martial arts suit was white, giving off a youthful vibe. The black edges gave off a sense of steadiness, which complemented his own temperament. It made his face, which was not considered handsome, look quite attractive. He laughed involuntarily. Don't go against your conscience and praise me. I've always won with my inner qualities, not superficial looks. Yen Zheke was amused. She wrinkled her cute nose and said, Haven't you heard that beauty is in the eye of the beholder? Or do you not trust your wife's taste? Before Lu Cheng could answer, she nudged her husband's shoulder. It's time for you to leave. Go to Zhouwen Stadium and adjust your condition. I'll be there for uncle and auntie. Don't worry. The Battle of Warrior Sage was one of the earliest title matches. It retained many of the ancient dueling traditions. For example, the final match was a single match to determine the winner. Due to this reason, Lu Cheng, who had several VIP room slots, formed a group of friends and family, including travel and lodging. Lu Cheng walked to the door and chuckled. Uncle and auntie? Have you forgotten what to call them again? After the Battle of Warrior Sage ends, we can take the opportunity to discuss the wedding while our families are together. Why do I feel like you're raising flags? Yen Zheke looked at him and joked. It's like the old general on the stage, with flags all over his body. Once you're in debt, you won't have to worry anymore, Lu Cheng joked. Just as he pulled open the door and was about to leave, she suddenly pulled him back. Yen Zheke came up to him, tiptoed, and kissed him lightly on the lips. Then, she stood straight and looked at him with a smile. Good luck. At this point, she deliberately made her tone lively. I'll be waiting for you to come back to discuss the wedding. Full of motivation. Lu Cheng smiled and pumped his fist. Then, he stepped out of the room like a general on an expedition. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly turned back and teased, Remember to call me Mom and Dad. Humph. Yen Zheke tilted her head and looked to the side. A second later, she turned back and watched Lu Cheng enter the elevator with her dimples. After waiting for a while, Yen Zheke packed up her belongings and went to the lobby of the hotel. After a while, she saw the Lu couple, accompanied by Qi Yunfei, Chen Xiaoxiao and other younger generation, walking over. They were dressed as if they were going to attend a wedding. When Cheng and I hold a banquet, it will be like this. Yen Zheke's bright eyes rolled up, her thoughts drifting. As her thoughts ran wild, she stepped forward and blurted out, Dad, Mom! Before she could finish speaking, she was already stunned. After 4 years of studying abroad, she was no longer the shy little girl she used to be. However, at this moment, she still blushed. Oh no, I've been led into a ditch by Cheng. How embarrassing. I don't want to stay here, I want to go back. Seeing Lu Jisheng, Qi Feng and the others' dumbfounded expressions, Yen Zheke hated that there was not a crack in the ground for her to hide in. She quickly recalled how she felt during the summit forum speech and forced herself to calm down. Visualizing the confrontation formula, she pretended as if nothing had happened and smiled. Uncle, Auntie, the car is just outside. Let's go out. Lu Jisheng and Qi Feng looked at each other with kind smiles on their faces. They replied in unison, Okay, okay, okay. After getting in the car, Yen Zheke had the style of Wang Gu, talking to Qi Yunfei, Chen Xiaoxiao, and Ma Shi endlessly. From time to time, she took advantage of their topics so that the Lu couple could interrupt and not feel neglected. 20 minutes later, they arrived at Zhouwen Stadium. The girl led them through the VIP passageway and into the private room. Looking at the familiar faces of the physical invulnerability mighty ones walking around, Qi Feng suddenly pulled Lu Jisheng. Help me check if my collar is done. Are there any threads on the back? Seriously, why are you so nervous? Granny Lu entered the Grand View Garden? Lu Jisheng laughed and pretended to size her up. No problem. At this moment, he glanced outside and pointed at himself. Should I keep it all buttoned up or unbuttoned? Aren't you not nervous? Qi Feng scolded him jokingly. This is being polite, being polite. Lu Jisheng answered with difficulty. Then, he lowered his voice and said, Zheke's parents will be coming later. We have to make Cheng proud. Only you can do it. Qi Feng said, but she was scrutinizing her husband again. She even pulled Qi Yunfei, Chen Xiaoxiao, and the rest over to provide objective opinions. Yen Zheke was already in the dance stage. She had sharp eyes and ears. How could she not hear her parents-in-law's whispers? She held back her laughter and deliberately went outside to welcome her relatives, leaving them some space in the private room. After a few minutes, she saw her father, Yan Kai, and Empress Dowager, Ji Mingyu, walking in hand. They were so affectionate as if they had just been married. "Where are Grandpa and Grandma?" Yan Zheka asked curiously. "They went to chat with their old friends," Ji Mingyu replied with a smile. They were worried that Lu's parents would be too nervous and stressed. "That's true." Yan Zheka heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed her brows. "You're siding with an outsider. First, you asked us to come back early from Kingstown, and then you secretly flew straight to Lu's place. You haven't been home for several days. You're not even married yet." Seeing her daughter's smile, Ji Mingyu's face changed. She scolded her daughter, and in return, she acted like a spoiled child. In the private room next to them, Kai Zhongming smiled at his former roommates, Zhao Chong, Zhang Jingye, Qiu Zhigao, former teammates Li Mao, Sun Jian, He Zi, and the non-staff member Yan Xiaoling. This is not a competition at all. It's more like a gathering of old friends. It's like attending a feast. Just then, a few more people came in through the door. The leader was a chubby man with an amiable appearance. The other was very tall and had a restrained aura. They were Jiang Fei and Qin Rue. The other two seemed to be their girlfriends. Looking at the room full of strangers, Jiang Fei suddenly felt a little uneasy, although he recognized Kai Zhongming and the other members of the martial arts club. The voices suddenly disappeared. The atmosphere became quiet and a little awkward. But some people were born to be in this kind of situation. Kai Zhongming approached and said with a bright smile, "Jiang Fei? Qin Rue? I often hear Cheng mention you guys. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Kai Zhongming. You can call me Talker." The estrangement was broken. With Lu Cheng as the link and Little Ming as the lubricant in the middle, everyone was about the same age. Soon, they had a good chat and the atmosphere became warm again. On the aisle outside the door, Lin Kei walked in with his hands in his pockets, wearing a white shirt and black pants. He glanced at the two boxes where his relatives were, and then at the place where the voices of Kai Zhongming and the others came from. Without hesitation, he pushed open the door behind him and sat quietly in the corner, as if he was still a member of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. The sky was getting dark. The audience sped up to find their seats. Comrade Shi Jiangwo also came to the VIP private room where his old friends were. He paused, took out his phone, and looked at the photos in the album. He nodded silently. "Well, this is what Wukong looks like. I can't forget." After confirming, he smiled leisurely and pushed the door open. "Dragon King! Lu Chang!" As the audience grew, cheers started to warm up the atmosphere. The competition didn't feel like a final battle. Instead, it felt like a festive festival. Of course, the reporters didn't think so. They used all kinds of methods to exaggerate the tension and anticipation of the competition. Will it be the handover of Long Hu's authority? How far is Lu Cheng from Dragon King? According to research, less than 10% of people think Lu Cheng can win. Lu Cheng will be the warrior sage in the future, but he definitely won't be the winner today. Hope is zero. Kai Zhongming led the conversation while browsing the content and gathering information. Seeing that it was time, he smiled at Li Mao, Jiang Fei, and the others. "I'm going to start working." He took out his laptop from his backpack and set up various peripherals. After a while, he started the live broadcast. "Everyone, it's time for you to experience the VIP private rooms of Zhouwen Stadium." In the exclusive resting room, Lu Qing opened his eyes, got up slowly, and walked to the door. Clang! He pushed open the door, welcomed the flowing light, and walked step by step to the grand stage. The moment he entered the venue, the cheers were even louder. Lu Cheng waved his hand and turned to look at the few VIP private rooms that belonged to him. There is a little bit of light in his life there. He calmed himself down, retracted his gaze, and turned to look at the center of the arena. Dragon King, Chen Qitao, was already standing there. He was wearing a navy blue suit, and his back was straight. He looked majestic and tall, like a volcano that was about to erupt. Chapter 744. In the past 6 months, Lu Cheng hadn't had a formal battle with Dragon King. However, they had never stopped sparring in private. In the past 2 months, he had only won once or twice out of 10 times. And those times were when both parties were equally restrained. This meant that things would get worse in a crucial battle. The saying that there was zero hope was too biased, but a 10% chance of winning was close to the truth. This was the consensus of the top experts, as well as Lu Cheng's understanding. But as long as there was a glimmer of hope, he wouldn't be dejected or afraid. He would use all his passion and courage to chase, grasp, and hold on until the end. This was a trait he had developed throughout his journey, and also influenced by Battle King Dong Baxian. He could fail, but he couldn't admit defeat. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Lu Cheng's emotions flowed like a calm tide. His will grew steadier, and his aura was contained. When he reached his predetermined position, he finally raised his gaze and looked straight at his opponent, as the challenger. It was a handsome masculine face with chiseled features. It was a face that no expert in the world would dare to look at for 10 years. Dragon King Chen Qitao. Although the referee had retreated to the edge, he could sense the smell of gunpowder in the air. A battle was about to break out. Just like the ancient rules used to determine the winner, the Battle of Warrior Sage followed another tradition, and that was that there was no conversation time. Before Lu Cheng could gather his 5 flames and prepare, the referee glanced at the hanging electronic clock, raised his right arm, and swung it down heavily. Begin! The new Battle of Warrior Sage had begun. The loser would not be remembered, and the winner would be crowned the champion. Bam! Chen Qitao's accumulated aura exploded like a volcano erupting horizontally. Using his right fist, which was covered in a thick layer of faint purple, he forcefully dragged his body across the 30-meter distance towards Lu Cheng's face. Fast and fierce. This wasn't much weaker than Dong Baxian's Xuanpa or Qian Dongluo's Thunderbolt. In terms of aura, it was even better. The air around them reddened rapidly, as though reflecting the sea of flames. The clash seemed to have blended into one with the referee's voice, the change in environment, and the passage of time. Lu Cheng had the time and ability to dodge, but for some reason, he was half a beat slower, as though it was destined to be so. But under Chen Qitao's guidance, his spirit trembled. His body, as though stimulated, surged with unprecedented strength. He broke through his condition and climbed to a new peak. Is this the sharpening and strengthening of a top-level battle? How amazing! In a fight between masters, every second counts. Lu Cheng had lost the best chance to dodge because of his slow movement. He could only suppress his thoughts, lower his waist, and twist his muscles and fascia. He shook out his right arm and punched out like a cannonball. Attack against attack. Because he was inferior to the Dragon King in all aspects of the fire sect, he did not use his weakness to attack the Dragon King's strength. Instead, he catalyzed the Ice Soul technique to counter the Dragon King's strength. Then, he accumulated the Emperor Yen technique in each of his punches, accumulating his qi and unleashing his full power. In a split second, he had already decided on his follow-up strategy. Bam! Fists collided and sparks flew in all directions. However, most of the faint purple flames were sealed in ice. When they merged or tore apart everything, they exhausted themselves and dimmed and extinguished. There were even a few translucent purple snowflakes that fluttered in midair. Bam! Chen Qitao stretched his back and threw another punch in an extremely aggressive and domineering manner. It was like a prairie fire. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. Lu Cheng couldn't escape from the series of wild attacks. He could only defend passively. But he didn't panic. His ice heart froze and his spirit settled. He countered with punch after punch of ice spirit. Under the clash of cold and heat, thin mist filled the air. It was like a fairyland. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. As the flames around them grew brighter and brighter, Lu Cheng suddenly opened his mouth and let out a roar. His left fist punched out with bulging muscles. His Emperor Yen force had been accumulated to the limit. A layer of light purple ignited and covered the area heavily. It seemed to be only a small amount, but it was actually formed by the compression of countless Emperor Yen. If it exploded directly, it could flatten an area of 10 square meters and dig a hole. Chen Qitao's expression didn't change. He tightened his half-hanging left arm and swung it back. The surrounding flames seemed to have been summoned. They gathered at one point and lit up brightly. This was the advanced application of 9 rotations of 5 flames. Boom! A sudden light flashed, leaving the broadcast screen white. Then, smoke and dust expanded along with the flames, turning into a mushroom-like cloud that soared into the sky. Only then did the deafening sound of the explosion reverberate, causing the minds of the audience who had long been prepared to buzz, causing the ordinary glass in the unimportant places to crack and shatter. Before the terrifying shockwave subsided, Chen Qitao broke through the layers of obstacles. Like a soldier walking in a rain of bullets, he closed in on Lu Qing again and launched another round of fire-like invasion. Just like that, he blocked Lu Cheng's ultimate move. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. Lu Cheng tried a few moves but still couldn't shake him off. Whether it was the build-up of Emperor Yen and Ice Spirit, the ingenious short-range changes, or the initial condensation of 5 flames, they were all destroyed by Dragon King Chen Qitao's own fire sect ferocious attacks. He fully demonstrated what it meant to defeat 10 with one's strength. Seeing that the situation was getting worse, Lu Qing suddenly felt weightless in a collision between an elbow and a fist. Like a kite with a broken string, he flew backwards. While he was still in the air, he had already unleashed 3 bursts of Emperor Yen force, helping him change direction 3 times in a row to escape. However, Dragon King Chen Qitao was also a fire sect physical invulnerability expert. His moves were purer than Lu Cheng's. He pounced forward and changed direction, locking onto his opponent with ease. At this moment, ice crystals appeared on the surface of Lu Cheng's body. He used this opportunity to squeeze out new flame force and unleashed another burst. Bam! There was a faint sound coming from his body. His body, which was already at the end of its flight, made a strange turn and bounced away. 4 changes of direction. This was the result of Lu Cheng's combination of cosmic universe style and fire sect techniques. He had broken the ceiling of physical invulnerability experts who could only change direction 3 times. This was also one of his trump cards today. Seeing that Dragon King seemed to be powerless, Lu Cheng's eyes suddenly froze. This was because the sparks of fire around Chen Qitao had gathered into a ball at some point. Bam! The explosion of the fireball gave the Dragon King a new impetus to change its direction, allowing it to charge over with a roar. He's really not far from the Forbidden Land. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to change direction 4 times. Lu Cheng seemed to have understood. Because his mesmerizing snow steps footwork was interrupted, he had no choice but to fall into Dragon King's suppression again and face thousands of punches and kicks. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. He had used up all his trump cards but still couldn't turn the situation around. Gradually, he could only hold on and wait. In the stands and in the box, Yan Zheka, Qi Feng, Ji Mingyu, Jiang Fei, and the rest subconsciously held their breaths. Their hands were either tightly clenched or clenched into fists. Rationally, they knew that Lu Cheng's chances of winning today were very low. They were mainly here to witness his first title match and enjoy the excitement. However, when the battle officially began, they couldn't help but feel a little hopeful and hoping for a miracle. However, Dragon King at 100% once again showed what the legendary twins were, and what the era of Dragon King and Warrior Sage was. It seemed that it wouldn't be long before Lu Cheng swallowed the bitter pill of defeat. And it was obvious that he had used up all his tricks. As if they were listening to a countdown, the cheers of the audience quieted down. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. With the burning pain in his mind and the erosion of the flames, Lu Cheng was triggered. His surroundings turned gloomy. A feeling of boundless coldness, silence, and loneliness materialized. In the depths of this gloomy darkness, emotions such as love, pity, protection, and obsession to live turned into stars, illuminating the cold, darkness, and loneliness around him. This was Lu Cheng's increasingly perfected state of mind to resist the spread of Dragon King's prairie fire. At his peak, Dragon King's punches and kicks carried some state of mind. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. Domineering, barbaric, scorching, and terrifying feelings burned fiercely. With Chen Qitao's aggressive punches and kicks, they slowly but surely devoured Lu Cheng's universe. The gloomy darkness began to roll back, and the radiance was pressed closer and closer. Lu Cheng's mental state slowly shrank to only half an inch away from his body. After another 2 or 3 hits, it would be beaten back to its original state. Bam! The volcano erupted, and the flames surged with the fists. Lu Cheng's body swayed slightly as he barely blocked Dragon King's fists. However, his own state of mind was completely collapsing and shrinking inwards. The radiance merged into one and became more and more condensed. The darkness rolled back, wanting to devour and absorb them into nothingness. The end of the universe had come. In that split second, Lu Cheng seemed to be attracted by the picture. He suddenly thought of the small courtyard in the capital, the scroll hanging in Old May's room, the statue of the heavenly primogenitor, the restriction sect, the clear jade chapter, and the palm as white as jade pressing down on him. The starry sky and the universe became smaller and smaller, more and more solidified. The stars were destroyed one by one, and the darkness rapidly shrank until it converged into a single point. Then, it spurted out and shattered into pieces. How similar it was to what was happening now. All of a sudden, Lu Cheng seemed to have understood something. He no longer cared about the darkness that had returned to its original form. His force, mind, and everything else suddenly shrank inward, adding in the little bits of condensed brilliance. He added in the feelings of love, joy, pity, protection, and willingness to give up his life for this. After an instant, the darkness engulfed the radiance and condensed it into a single point. However, that single point was bursting with a blinding brilliance. Bam! As the brilliance burst forth, Lu Cheng threw the most powerful punch of his life. This wasn't just a punch of destruction, it was also a punch of creation. The great vitality of destruction. This was the essence of the restriction sect, clear jade chapter. Everything was destroyed, and something new was born. Dragon King Chen Qitao's eyes were completely occupied by the jade-white fist. However, he wasn't surprised. Instead, he made use of this stimulation to ignite his own spirit. All of a sudden, he transformed from numerous volcanoes into a real sun. He was heavy, hot, and terrifying. Bam! The sun fell, punching the void. The two fists collided, and the world seemed to freeze for an instant. Rumble! The Zhouwen Stadium seemed to have experienced an earthquake as it shook violently. This time, there was no mushroom cloud, no wind, and no flames. However, both Lu Cheng and Dragon King were shorter by a meter. With the fists as the center, a 1-meter-deep crater with a diameter of about 20 meters appeared in the arena. Many of Lu Cheng's capillaries were broken, and his clothes were torn in many places. Not a single piece of skin was left unscathed. His body felt drained. He was happy that he could throw such an earth-shattering punch, but also depressed that his body had deteriorated greatly. If Dragon King were to attack again, he would probably only be able to block a few punches. At this moment, he saw Chen Qitao standing there. His breathing was deep, and his vitality was weak. In contrast, illusory flames surged around him. The scarlet red and faint purple flames were scorching. Chance! The thought flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. Without thinking, he retracted his qi and blood and formed the last Dou formula. Then, his Dan force gushed out, and he took a step forward. He was in front of Chen Qitao, and he threw a punch at his opponent's head. Layers of invisible flames gathered spontaneously. The closer Lu Cheng's fist was to Dragon King, the stronger the resistance. However, compared to the Dou formula, it was still weak and could only slow down the speed. A second later, Lu Cheng's fist landed beside Chen Qitao's head and stopped there. There was no more resistance. He raised his head in shock and looked over. He saw that Dragon King's pupils had disappeared, leaving only a sea of flames. A sea of flames that felt unusually real. The sea of flames was reflected on the outside. Faint purple, scarlet red, light blue, and gold swirled in the air. In that instant, Lu Cheng inexplicably understood Dragon King's condition. Using the stimulation and catalysis of my punch, he burned himself and exceeded his limits. He finally broke through the gap between man and God and opened the door to the forbidden territory. Because the breakthrough was a process, not a node, he lost. At this moment, the fire clouds suddenly spread, turning the entire venue into a sea of flames. However, Lu Cheng didn't feel any heat or scorching heat. It was so real, yet so fake, just like Elder May's courtyard that was always like spring. Witnessing this scene, the warrior sage, Qian Donglu, who was sitting in a private room, suddenly paled. It was as if a certain victory had been unexpectedly snatched away. Chen Qitao raised his head and looked over. His lips curled. He looked back at Lu Cheng and nodded lightly. Well done. This was the first time Lu Cheng saw such an obvious smile on his face. With that, Chen Qitao turned around, threw off his broken shoes, and walked barefooted out of Zhouwen Stadium with his back straight. In the silence, the referee finally came back to his senses. He raised his right arm and announced loudly, "Lu Cheng wins." The audience also came back to their senses and applauded, both for Dragon King and Lu Cheng. Moments later, the spotlight shone on Lu Cheng. The person in charge of the organizing committee shouted into the microphone, "Let's not talk about other things. Let's not worry about that for now. Let's welcome the new warrior sage." Warrior sage, Lu Cheng. Warrior sage, the saint of martial arts. Chapter 745. In the freshly decorated live streaming room, Xu Ruei, who was wearing an intellectual knee-length dress, looked at Lu Cheng and smiled. "I've been waiting for this interview for so long." She wanted to say, "You've been dragging it out for too long." However, when the words warrior sage enter her mind, she subconsciously changed to a more tactful way of saying it. Lu Cheng didn't sit like a bell like most martial artists. Instead, he leaned back comfortably and said, "Can't help it. I have to focus on preparing for the warrior sage battle." "All right, We're streaming online today. There's no delay or editing. If you say anything you shouldn't say, everyone will hear it immediately and won't be able to take it back. So think carefully," said Xu Ruei, half jokingly and half reminding. Lu Cheng nodded with a smile. "Then I'll have to think twice before I act." Xu Ruei held a stack of papers in her hand. It looked like the outline of the interview. However, she didn't even look at it, treating it as decoration. "First of all, congratulations on becoming the warrior sage," said Xu Ruei with a bright smile. "After that battle, the evaluation of you online and offline has increased again. They're full of praises for you. Things like how there will be many superpowers in the future, how you've reached the level of Dragon King and Warrior Sage, how you're the king of the Age of Gods, and how you'll have the most titles in the future. What do you have to say about this?" Lu Cheng thought for a few seconds before answering frankly. "When I first saw it, I was quite proud." Seeing Xu Ruei break into laughter, he shook his head and sighed. "That's human nature. However, it does raise my status too much. I'll need at least a few more years to reach the level before Dragon King and Warrior Sage. Now, I'm in the same class as other superpowers. I'm not afraid of them, and they won't be afraid of me. In a few more years, others might also reach the level before Dragon King and Warrior Sage. For example, Kirin and God-slaying Saber who aren't even 50 years old, Wisdom King who'll be around 30, or Peng Liyun and Ran Li who have their own path." Xu Ruei's eyes turned. She wasn't stingy with her praise. "But I believe you'll be the brightest and most dazzling one." "Thank you." Lu Cheng could only reply. Xu Ruei thought for a few seconds and continued to dig deeper into the topic. "I'm not just saying empty words. The punch you used to defeat the Dragon King, to help the Dragon King break through, was truly earth-shattering, world-shocking, and unparalleled. I think that, other than the Warrior Saint, none of the current superclass experts would be able to block that punch head-on." Lu Cheng shook his head and laughed. "First of all, no matter how strong the move is, it's useless if it can't hit the target. If it can't be blocked, it can be dodged. Secondly, I can't use this punch casually. I need to be at the right time, place and people." He spoke vaguely and didn't talk about the factors involved. After all, he couldn't let others know too much about his trump card. The reason he was able to throw that punch was mostly due to the terrifying pressure of the Dragon King. From his mind to his punches and kicks, he had used external forces to help him complete the condensation and simulate the scene of him returning to a single point. Without this, it would have taken him 5 to 6 years to complete it on his own accord. Besides, the Dragon King was able to cooperate so well because he had a good understanding of his own cosmic universe style. Secondly, he had been studying the Restriction Sect, Clear Jade chapter for a long time. If it had been the Warrior Saint, he would have had to go through more trouble to achieve it. He might not even have been able to do it. As for other superclass experts, they wouldn't go through so much trouble to seek failure. They would deliberately avoid such situations. Only a punch with the right time, place, and people could defeat such a Dragon King. Xu Rui agreed and didn't ask any more questions. Instead, she smiled and said, "After witnessing it for 2 years, everyone is very interested in your cosmic universe-style martial arts. They look forward to it very much. I heard that you also have thoughts of starting your own sect. Well, not the independent kind. On behalf of the audience, I'll use this line to express my feelings. So where can I buy it?" Lu Cheng pondered and said, "I'll give the foundation to the martial arts schools of the Ice God sect and the Longhu Club. When there are good seedlings, maybe I'll take them as my disciples." "Oh, I'm looking forward to it." Xu Rui sighed. "It's a pity that I'm old and can't practice martial arts anymore." "Not really," Lu Cheng said politely. At the same time, he promoted his wife's plan. "And the cosmic universe style can be used to nourish one's body and beautify one's face." "Really?" Xu Rui blurted out. Lu Cheng smiled and said, "Let's not look at the advertisement but the effect. When the time comes, something similar will come out. Well, it's mainly my wife who changed it." Xu Rui's eyes were about to turn red. She just wanted to ask when the results would come out. She teased him and said that the majority of her female compatriots were looking forward to it. Then she smiled and said, "Wife? You're calling her so intimately. You're not calling her your girlfriend but your wife? You're getting married soon?" "Yes, we've already gotten the marriage certificate. The only thing left is the wedding. It's in October." Lu Cheng shared his joy. After the parents of both parties agreed on the wedding date, Lu Cheng and Yan Zheka told them that they had already gotten the marriage certificate a few days later. Of course, they didn't say when they got it. Qi Feng and the others thought that it was done after the marriage was settled. "Congratulations. Congratulations. You've got a major exam and a minor exam." Xu Rui put the paper on her lap and greeted them with the etiquette of a martial artist. Without waiting for Lu Cheng to answer, she asked with great interest, "What kind of wedding do you want to have? More modern or more classical?" "More classical, but there's no such thing as a red veil." Lu Cheng answered frankly. "I'm looking forward to that scene." Xu Rui clapped her hands and said. The chatty interview continued for a while. Xu Rui thought of something and said with a smile, "You've always said that the Dragon King is your idol. How does it feel to defeat your idol?" "It's very complicated. It's a little predestined. My master once said that the greatest respect for an idol is to challenge him and defeat him." Lu Cheng answered with some consideration. "Then besides the Dragon King, who else is a martial artist that you used to admire?" Xu Rui asked curiously. Lu Cheng didn't hide. "The late bloomer, Liang Yifan. At that time, I wanted to be a late bloomer like him." "It's a pity that you're a young hero." Xu Rui joked. She thought for a while and said, "Liang Yifan once said that it was a pity that he didn't see you when you just started practicing martial arts at Songqing University." Lu Cheng chuckled and said, "Actually he saw me." "Ha! Really?" Xu Rui's eyes widened. Lu Cheng smiled and said, "When he came to Songqing University, I was in charge of the security at the main entrance of the hotel." "Heh, actually you can't call it security. Later, I even asked him for an autograph. But at that time, I was very inconspicuous. He probably doesn't remember." Liang Yifan, who was at home playing with his children and listening to the live broadcast, suddenly looked up in surprise. Xu Rui was even more excited. "It sounds like a legend." The little security guard at that time could only stay up all night to look up to the other security guard. In the end, he rose to the same level as the other security guard and even defeated him. The internet also started a heated discussion. Everyone was quite excited. Who hadn't fantasized about something similar? After talking about Liang Yifan, Xu Rui took a deep breath and tried to find another topic to calm down. "Lu Cheng, no, Your Excellency Warrior Sage, when I was doing the program, entering the physical invulnerability stage, I noticed that you are more interested in the internet. Do you visit your own fan forum?" "Yes," Lu Cheng said concisely. Xu Rui smiled and asked again, "As a member of Longhu Club, do former fans visit the fan forums of Longhu Club and Dragon King?" "Yes." Lu Cheng didn't hide it. On the forum, Wonton Seller said, clenching fist high five expression. "Like I said, they will come to watch often." "Oh no. I once slandered him. Will I be punched to death?" Someone said half-jokingly. I'm afraid I'll be cremated. While everyone was discussing, Xu Rui asked, Then do you have an account? What's your nickname? Can you tell us? Ah. Lu Cheng chuckled and replied, Schrodinger's tiger. What? In the forum, the girl wonton seller exclaimed in shock. Huh. Ka. What the hell? Words of shock and astonishment popped up one after another. After the interview, Lu Cheng got into his SUV and returned to his villa by Xiaopei Lake. He scanned his fingerprint and opened the door. As soon as he stepped in, he heard Yan Zheka ask, Cheng, what do you think of this outfit? I plan to wear it at the wedding. Lu Cheng looked up and saw that his wife was wearing an elegant Han Dynasty costume with a black base and red edges. Under the bright light, she was so beautiful that she looked like someone who walked out of a painting. Suddenly, he felt like he was back in his first year of university, looking at his wife in a red and white Han Dynasty costume in the distance from the martial arts arena. The corners of Lu Cheng's mouth curved upwards. Fairy. During the Lantern Festival last year, the lights in the flower market were bright as day. End of book. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.